Hello, everybody, and welcome to this short recording, which is FAQs about a maker census that we have developed for makers in the Crafts Council collection. So I am going to talk for a little bit about how this project came about, and then I'm going to pass to Elena, who's going to talk about the survey and some of those FAQ questions that we have come across. And then we're going to pass to Jo Stansfield, who is a consultant who we're working with, who runs a company called Inclusioneering. And she is working with the Crafts Council all about their GDPR and ethical data collection. So I am Deborah Ridley, and I'm the Senior Curator of Collections here at the Crafts Council. And we are coming towards the end of a 3-year-long project that we've been working on, funded by the National Lottery Heritage Fund, called Craft for the People. And the objectives of the whole project was to make the Crafts Council collection available to a wider amount of people and to make the collection more resilient. And when we first wrote the funding bid, there were key issues that we knew that we wanted to tackle. So we worked out what those issues were. There were 5 projects that we wanted to run back to back, and each project was staffed by a young craft citizen placement, of which Elena is one. The Young Craft Citizens is a network of young people aged 18 to 30 that the Crafts Council convenes. So this key issue that we wanted to tackle, we knew that there was big gaps in our knowledge around information around the makers in our collection. So when we acquire works, we collect loads of information about the works, how they were made, lots of technical information, but we weren't collecting any information about the makers and who made the works. And obviously the story of you, the makers, is really important and is often really linked and very important to the work that we hold in the collection. So we knew that we wanted to reach out and contact everybody and give you the opportunity to tell us your story and tell us about how maybe who you are informs your practice and the works that you've made. So there were 2 key reasons that we really wanted to do this. And the first reason was to be able to better share your works that we hold in the collection. So we often have curators come to us and they will let us know that they're working on a project to do with something, and then we can recommend makers and works that we think might fit. So the example something that came up recently was somebody working on an exhibition of female Scottish weavers. So it'd be really useful for us to be able to dip into our collections database and be able to then come say, okay, these are the people who fit that criteria. So we want to be able to better locate and easily share your works. The second reason is a reason around decolonizing collections. So you may have heard this is a hot topic in the museum industry at the moment, that institutions are looking at themselves and trying to think of ways that they can make their collections representative of, for us, it's representative of the wide breadth of making in the UK. So before we can say, has anybody been left out of the collection, we need to first know who's in the collection. And that's why we really wanted to conduct this census, to be able to say, this is who we have in, and we have left certain groups of people out, and now we can go and consider this when we're acquiring new works into the future, into the collection in the future. So that was our ambition, and thank you very much for giving us your time to take part in this survey. And I'm now going to pass to Elena Young, our Young Craft Citizen freelancer, who has really done the bulk of the work on this project and has been very amazing. And she has going to talk about how she developed the survey and those interesting FAQ questions that keep arising. So I'll pass to Elena.
Hi everyone, I'm Alina, and I, as Deborah has said, have been working collaboratively with the team to develop this survey, both its contents and sending it out to all of you, the makers. Preparing this survey has been an iterative process, and we've prepared it collaboratively and refined it over several stages of feedback. It's been carefully designed to not only meet those aims, which Deborah just outlined, helping Crafts Council understand representation in the collection and helping to promote your work in exhibitions, loans and writing. So therefore, we also definitely want it to be of benefit to you, the makers filling it out. We reviewed the survey's contents together with the Crafts Council team. Multiple members of the team gave their feedback, as well as external advisors such as Joe, and also other advisory positions. We also asked for feedback from makers and made sure that whatever comments they had about their experience filling out the survey were incorporated as much as we could whilst fulfilling the aims. And I'm also going to just walk you through the survey itself, what it actually asks and what it's like to fill it out. So hopefully by the end, you should have a clearer sense of what to expect when you actually sit down and contribute your time to this. So what do the questions and the sections actually look like? The census is built around two types of questions. The first are shorter demographic questions. These are the kinds of questions you'd expect in census-like surveys. So it's, for example, your gender, your ethnicity, information about your educational background. What we really wanted to make sure was that those elements of your identity are also viewed through the lens of your practice. And so therefore, each section you have narrative-led questions too, which are optional, and you're asked to say whether or not you feel this demographic section relates to your practice. And if it does, you can explain in your own words through a text box what that narrative is for you. There's no expectation for it to be of a particular length, and it can really just be what you want to contribute. The real purpose of how you feel identity and your background intersect with your practice. There's no right or wrong in that. And at the very end, we also have the final section, which is purely narrative-based questions. And in those narrative-based questions, you can answer, for example, where you seek your inspirations, any other comments about what craft means to you, and finally, whether you are considering yourself to be part of craft communities and what those communities mean for you. How long will the survey actually take is a common question as well. We say that it can take anywhere between 10 and 30 minutes. The reason is that it's just depending on how far in terms of detail you want to go to give those narrative-based answers. But it's completely up to you the extent that you answer those and whether you do at all, because they're optional. And a note on terms of the practical elements of filling out the form. When you fill it out, you will be able to go through the sections one by one. You can also scroll and revisit previous questions. And even if you close the page, you can come back to it later, because for 15 days, it will be stored on your computer as long as you don't delete your browser history. So that means that you can also take a break and come back to it. And until you hit submit, we won't be able to see your answers. So hopefully that gives you some idea about what the experience of the survey will actually be like. And now I'm going to pass over to Jo, as I'm sure that she will be able to explain what we will actually do with that data and how it will be protected a bit better. Over to you, Jo.
Thank you, Alina. And hi, everybody. My name's Jo. So my responsibility has been all around the GDPR and the data protection aspects. And that's because we're going to be asking you for some data that may feel sensitive and personal to you. So in GDPR, this is called special category data. And as Alina mentioned, we're going to be asking you questions that relate to your gender and your ethnicity and things like whether you have a disability or neurodiverse. So it's very important that this data is very carefully protected, because we know that this is personal information for you and we're required by law to be protecting that with the utmost care. So let me tell you a little bit about what we're going to be doing. The first thing to say is actually this is a choice for you about what data you share. We are going to ask for your consent at the beginning of the survey before you start to take it, that you agree to be sharing this data with us. And to be able to give your consent, it's really important that you understand what the survey is for and what you're going to be asked about and the information that you're going to be sharing. So, please have a watch of this video, rewatch it if you need to, and read the information at the beginning of the survey. And if anything isn't at all clear, please get in touch. And we also have an FAQ with written answers online to some questions that people commonly have about the survey. So the first thing is make sure you understand it. The first thing that you'll be asked to do in the survey is to fill in your name and your email address and tick a box to say that you agree to share your information. Now, we're asking you to share your name and email address because this is about you and about the practice that you have and about what's gone into the craft that you do. So we do need to know who you are to be able to meaningfully link that to your work. So we're going to ask for your consent to share your information on a broad level for that purpose of understanding representation across all of the collection so that we can identify where there are any gaps, and as Deborah talked about, so that we can really go about this important work of decolonising the collection to make sure that we have representative makers within the collection across the breadth of the makers community in the UK. So this is the consent that you'll give right at the beginning of the survey. When you get into the survey, you'll find that there's questions around different aspects of your identity. And for each of those sections, you'll again be asked to give your consent. And this is for the other purpose that Deborah told you about, which is around making use of the information about your identity to help to promote your work and to share your work. So, for example, these sections will give us the information that would enable us to say, aha, here's a female Scottish weaver. Let's make sure that she is represented within this exhibition that has been identified as an opportunity. So for every piece of identity information that you share, you've got the opportunity to tell us if you consent for us to use it for this additional purpose to promote your work. For all of the questions we ask, it's also important that you know that you can choose not to tell us. So if, for example, we're asking a question that you feel is private and you don't want us to know, that's absolutely fine. You can enter I prefer not to say, and you can also choose that you don't consent not to share that information in terms of your identity and how it informs your practice. If that's what you choose, we're delighted, but we'd love you to just fill in the survey. You don't need to share any information you're not comfortable to share, and we don't want you to feel any pressure to do so. What you feel comfortable to share won't influence in any way your relationship with the Crafts Council. This is simply so that we can best promote your work in the way that you are comfortable for us to do so. You can also withdraw your consent at any time. So if you change your mind, you can email us and let us know that you would like to withdraw consent for any of those pieces that you have shared. So in terms of the statistical information that we'll create about looking at the survey across everybody and understanding representation as a whole, your answers will be completely confidential. You will not be identified as an individual within any reports that we make about it. It will simply be statistical analysis that talks about the percentages and the representation of makers as a whole. So lastly, if you'd like more information about it, please do read the FAQs and also have a look at the Crafts Council privacy policy, which is on our website. The data, when you share it, will be accessible to us internally for the reporting purposes, for the data insights team and for the collections team. And it's going to be stored securely within our databases, our systems that are designed for this purpose. So we hope that that will reassure you about how we're looking after the data, what's going to be happening with it. And I will pass back to Deborah to wrap us up.
Great, thank you both. So thank you for listening to that. If you have any further questions, please do contact us. The email address that we're using is publicprograms@craftscouncil.org.uk, and we would love to hear from you. So thank you very much. Thanks.
Thank you.